Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 95, Meno 78b to c. For his third answer, Meno suggests that virtue is someone desiring fine things and being able to acquire them. Since then, Socrates has been examining this statement, concentrating on the first part, someone desiring fine things. And here Socrates has done a few underhand sophistic things, for example, changing fine to good. The change is significant because Meno was probably thinking of aesthetically fine things, in other words, beautiful things, which Socrates transforms into good and then beneficial things. Aesthetically fine things are not beneficial necessarily. The switch to beneficial allows Socrates to remove the further obstacle, the assumption that Meno had that there are people who don't desire fine things. By replacing fine with beneficial, Socrates is able to convince Meno that there is no one who desires ugly things. Oh, did I say ugly? I mean harmful. But this is supposed to be equivalent to ugly, just as beneficial is supposed to be equivalent to fine. Ukun unde eleges hoti estin hearete bulesthai te tagathai kai dunasthai? Epon gar. Weren't you saying just now that virtue is to want good things and to be able? Yes, for I said that. We've already seen in this dialogue and in other dialogues that Socrates sometimes says, "Don't you remember that you said this or that?" And his interlocutor says, "Yes, I remember. That's exactly what I said." And we know, because we can go back and look at what was said, we know that this was not what was said. Meno did not say that virtue is to want at all. He said virtue is someone desiring. Meno did not abstract to want or wanting. He used a person desiring. This incidentally reflects what Plato does in his dialogues. Abstractions cannot talk to each other, but individuals can, and our degmata are people representing abstractions. This is not to say, however, that Socrates is virtue or that virtue is Socrates. Socrates represents an aspect of virtue in this dialogue. We don't know what it is yet, but he represents it. As for Meno, he simply doesn't do abstraction anyway. We've already seen that. His idea of virtue is that it is a thing passed from the teacher to the pupil. Apart from not saying that virtue is to want, Meno also didn't say good things. He mentioned kala, fine things, not agatha, good things. He also didn't say to be able. He simply described the person as being able. Is there a term for someone who remembers what has been said in a dialogos? Yes, he's the dialektikos, the dialectician, and Meno is not a dialectician. And now Socrates comes to the point. Ukun tu lecthentos tomen bulesthai pasin huparche, kai tautege uden ho heteros tu heteru beltion. Phaenetai. Well then, of the thing said, in other words, of your statement, the to want exists for everyone, and here at least, one person is not at all better than another. So it seems. Socrates could have said simply that no one is different from anyone else. All people are the same in desiring fine things. But instead of that, he says no one is better than anyone else. In other words, again, Socrates is showing that he knows that arete is the characteristic of someone good, or rather, someone better than other people. In other words, virtue for Meno, this is not Socrates' idea, but for Meno, virtue has to do with excellence, being better than others. This competitive notion of arete goes all the way back to Mycenaean times, when arete had its original sense of manliness. And arete was the quality of a he-man, the man who kills other heroes before being killed himself, usually. This competitive notion of arete persisted into the classical age, and aristocrats used to compete against each other in various activities, including wrestling or even giving speeches. This competitive notion of arete seems to fit better with Meno's second answer, the ability to rule, to govern other people, rather than the first answer, in which we simply had people fulfilling the roles expected of them according to gender, status, and age. In Meno's third answer, he sees virtue as a man who is able to acquire, and this does sound a bit competitive. So Socrates is playing on that notion of competitiveness. Only the few who stand out can have arete. Therefore, in the first part of Meno's answer, Socrates has shown, speciously, but he has shown, that everyone desires fine things, and therefore desiring fine things is not part of arete. This explains why Socrates had to change fine things to beneficial things, because it would have been much harder to prove to Meno that all people actually desire fine things, because even we can see that there are people who seem to like ugly things. But nobody actually wants to be wretched or miserable. At least this is the old assumption in the ancient world. And to be wretched or miserable, you would desire harmful things. And nobody wants harmful things. This doesn't quite explain the impulse of some people to desire punishment for wrongs they have done. For example, Oedipus, who blinds himself. But it wouldn't occur to Meno that he would need to punish himself, or he would need to harm himself. He's not that sort of person. He behaves like someone with arete. At least he appears to be good, because he's handsome. So he appears to be good. He also has ability, obviously. He's an aristocrat. He's come all the way to Athens for some reason. He seems to think he is important. This is why he may well be projecting when he says that arete is someone desiring fine things and being able to get them, because that's what he does. Socrates has already described Meno as someone who is used to getting his own way. Ala delon hoti per esti beltion alos allu, katato dunas thai an amenon. Panuge. Well, it's clear, if indeed someone is better than another, he would be better according to the to be able, absolutely. It's interesting that in the very same sentence, Socrates uses two different words for better, beltion and amenon. There are other dialogues where the preferred word for better is kreton, which has connotations of being superior in a regime. Meno is evidently less concerned with being superior in a political context, but he is a well-born aristocrat and therefore good as beltion and amenon. Yet it isn't being a well-born aristocrat which singles Meno out to be someone with arete, but rather his ability to acquire what he wants. As Socrates puts it, it is the to be able which singles someone out as being better than someone else. Since Meno agrees with this, Socrates then reformulates this part of Meno's original statement. Tut estin ara hos eoike kataton son logon arete, dynamis tu porizestai tagatha. Pantapas si moi dokeo Socrates hutos echen hosu nun hupolambanes. So it seems, according to your argument, is virtue, arete, the ability to acquire the good things in general. It absolutely seems to me, Socrates, to be this way as you now understand it. Meno is very pleased with this reformulation of what he said. I'm not quite sure why he's so pleased with it. He may just be pleased that finally Socrates has understood something. Or he may be pleased that he can now use this answer to say that this is what Socrates said about virtue. This may be why Socrates is careful to say, according to your argument, your logos, this is what arete is. He would rather Meno didn't think that this was his own, Socrates' answer. The two main differences between Socrates' reformulation and Meno's original answer, at least the second part of his answer, is first of all that Socrates uses the word dynamis, ability, which we remember was the subject of Hippias Minor. This was the concept dramatized in that dialogue. We saw there that people with dynamis, with ability, appear to the many to be good, whether they are good or not, while those with ability which the many can't perceive are considered bad, as if they have no ability. Meno had used the adjective dynatos to describe the person being able to acquire, while here Socrates is using the abstract concept, the ability. And if we're trying to explain arete itself, it would be better to use an abstract. A person is merely an example, a degma. The second important difference is that Socrates is sticking with tagatha, the good things, and has not gone back to Meno's kala, takala, the fine things. At least we might say that we are making progress because the answer is now one thing, the ability to acquire good things, and no longer also the desire for those good things as well. We'll see how long that lasts next time.